What's up, guys? Welcome back to the EmpowerUp podcast. In this episode, we're trying out a new format, kind of like a roundtable discussion here. We have a couple guests for us, and I will try my best not to butcher his name. He just mentioned it, but we have on Jason Villareal, right? Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And you're a game tester, right? Associate tester at Gunfire?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm a associate QA tester, or soon to be associate QA tester for Gunfire Games.
Yep, and we also have his mentor, Cristopher Mora, who is you're also you're a QA test analyst at Sony Interactive, right, in San Diego.
That's correct. Mhm.
Awesome, man. Glad to have you. Glad to have you. So first things first, I'd like to know, like Steve, like what's your relationship to them, or how do you guys know each other, and then I guess we can kind of go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Jason, for taking some time to join us today. Like, for Chris, I know that we worked together side by side at Sony PlayStation for quite a few years. And one of the things about Chris is that I always saw his fire and his passion and his willingness to grow. And that was one of the things where I can't even remember where it was where we met, but we ended up having conversations, and it just snowballed into kind of me just kind of showing him all of the things that I did to progress in my career. And I saw the fire that Chris had, and that's one of the things that made me really want to mentor him. And then recently, I saw a post on LinkedIn where Chris had he tagged me, and he also tagged Jason. I was like, who's this Jason person? And then I was scouring LinkedIn, and I saw Jason had posted that he had just gotten a position as a tester at Gunfire Games. And then all the pieces started to come together that I had mentored Chris, and now Chris was mentoring Jason. And I was like, oh my goodness, like, it's so amazing to see how I didn't even realize the impact that the interactions that I had with Chris. But after chatting with him for a little bit, he told me about how our conversations had inspired him to want to pay it forward, essentially. And that's why I wanted to bring them onto the podcast, because this is so fresh. This is something that just happened literally this past week, and I just wanted to pick both of their brains to see what was it like, how'd they end up getting together, what was their mindset going into this interaction, and then what was the process of Chris helping out Jason so that he could actually apply for the job. So let's start it off with Chris. Like, I know you and I have been chatting for a while, but can you give us a little insight on what's been going on in your head during the past couple of weeks, especially with regards to helping out Jason?
Absolutely. And, thank you guys for basically inviting Jason and I to this podcast, and just being able to share a little bit about this experience, right? And, well, Jason, dude, like, it is once again great to see that you were able to uh, get your dream, man, and you never gave up. If I can just do like a side note before answering the question, Steve, it's that same sort of passion and the fire that I believe you were able to see in me that I saw in Jason, man. And it was such a trip because, like, when you first approached me, Jason, I'm like, that's definitely the spirit and the motivation that a person needs to break not only into games but also like get to where they want to be, right? Um, so yeah, just going back to your question, Steve. In the last couple of weeks, the the thing that I actually wanted to provide to Jason was mostly just like moral support, and like I don't think that I was telling you what to do or like necessarily pushing you towards stuff. Um, but my main goal was to be like to let you know that you were not alone in this process, man. Um, and to be able to sort of empower each other. I think like you gave me a lot of energy through basically keeping me on the loop of like like you've applied to these places, seeking feedback and stuff, and I think it was kind of like a two-way street on that end. So yeah, that was pretty much it. Just like super occasional catching up on LinkedIn, and we capitalize on being able to connect online with complete strangers, basically.
Dude, that's awesome.
That's pretty much it.
And for Jason, like one of the questions I want to ask you is like, out of all of the people in the world, how did you end up connecting with Chris? Like, what was that process for you?
It's actually a funny story. Well, kind of, not really. So initially, when I first like started to try applying to games, the first like studio I applied to was a studio in Japan called CyberConnect. I just wanted to test the waters because actually, in the future, I would like to go to Japan and one day work there. But I ended up getting rejected, so I think I applied to like some other places. I don't really remember too much. And then I figured at a point in time, I thought to myself, I think I should probably try to connect with people and try to like reach out to them and ask them for some advice if they have any for me or if they would be able to like, connect back. So I think I just randomly sent a connection request to Chris, just thinking like, I mean, maybe something will come out of it. Maybe he will accept my request and I can try to talk with him. And he did end up accepting it, and I think I just shot a message after that, and he ended up replying back, and I was really surprised about it because I didn't expect anything like that. I just wanted to test the waters, and that's how it ended up happening.
Awesome. And like, I know you sent a message to Chris, but I'm getting the feeling that he wasn't the only person that you sent a message out to. It sounds like you probably sent messages to various people on LinkedIn, and like, tell us about that.
Yeah. So yeah, I did. I sent so many messages, and actually, there's a lot of messages. When I go back through my DMs, I realize there's a lot of messages that people didn't respond back to me. So, but there was some instances where people did respond. Like, there was actually one of the first message. People I messaged was someone from, I believe it was Rockstar Games in the UK, and I guess my whole mindset initially was I wanted to just kind of move out, just leave, but I didn't really think about like there's a lot more to it than like moving out and going to other places, right? And for like QA testing, it's literally impossible to actually be able to move from out of the country for that because they don't really provide that much. I guess like support for it. So I did end up still like trying to just pick other people's brains, QA testers, and mainly it was QA testers. And then at a point when Chris told me like it'd be smart to like try to talk with recruiters as well, I tried to message recruiters also. But yeah, there was a lot of people that I messaged and a lot of people that didn't get back to me. But Chris was one of the few that did, which I'm very fortunate about.
So when, out of all of these people, like, it sounds like your journey's been going on for a while, and it sounds like there's been some wins, obviously, connecting with people, also some of the hardships of just like getting rejected, because having people not respond to you, that can feel bad, right? So for you, what have been some of the challenges that you've had just in this job search, and how were you able to overcome those things?
Yeah, so it was tough. I mean, I just graduated back in May, so I didn't really. I just wanted to kind of like try it out. Like, I mean, I knew I wanted to do something in game dev after I graduated because that was the thing that I had the most passion for. And it was definitely tough, initially because I really just, like I mentioned, I really just wanted to kind of like move like a different country or something and just live on my own and try it out. But there was obviously like way more to it. And once I actually found out, like, you should probably just stick within working in a country you're in now, and maybe in the future that could end up happening. So like some of the challenges was just like, trying to connect with people and trying to get them to respond back. I always kind of like my issue is I always just kind of like hold back, and sometimes I don't really message people or something like that. I don't DM. So there's a lot of people that I'm connected with that I've never interacted with, but they still like connected back with me. But I just never wanted to send a message because I felt like I felt like a bother. Like I don't really like bothering people too much either. So it's just kind of like, I guess it's kind of like an internal battle I had, whether messaging people or not. And then stuff like during the application process, figuring out like what it is that I need to put down on my resume to like stand out amongst others, especially for someone like myself who I don't have any experience whatsoever. And well, most of my experience was just my work in university, and apart from that, I didn't really have much experience. So it's kind of hard to like figure out what to have on there, what not to have on there. And I never actually fixed up my resume till I brought it up with Chris at some point. And then something like cover letters, I didn't know if that was important or how to write them and stuff like that. So I always wanted to try to have one, but I didn't really know how to go approach it. But yeah, I think those are like some of the challenges that I had to go through.
Dude, that's awesome. And then one of the things that I remember seeing, like I had a conversation with you before, and you showed me a sample of your resume before meeting Chris, and then
Right.
a sample of the resume after meeting Chris. And can you tell us like what were the differences? Like what were the aha moments that you had in that process? That people can learn from.
Well, I think the main thing is for people that don't have much experience with like video game development, I think the main thing is my first initial resume. I didn't have any work experience. I think what I kind of tried to rely on was like the skills that I had on there. But that's the problem with that is that people, they're not gonna know what skills you have until they actually like see it in action, right? So it's kind of like it doesn't really help out in a way either. It's nice to have, but they won't really know that you actually have those skills. You could just be lying and putting them on there or something. But I think the main thing that I wanted to try to focus on was what do I have that I can put for like the type of experience that I would have for video game development. So the main thing was just putting my project experience on there, or some type of experience, which was the project experience that I had. So I put like some of the games that I developed or helped develop with some other my colleagues back in university. And I think that was the main thing that actually stands out now to the new resume that I have. I feel like when I look at it now, I think it looks way better than what it used to look like, and it's a lot more simpler too. But I think sometimes simple is better. And then Chris was also one of the he also mentioned like try to add maybe some technical skills, like explain how you could bring or like your skills and like how you could bring or what you can bring to the table. Just kind of like detail those skills that you have. So those are like the two main things that I added. And besides it looking more simpler now, but I think that's something just to think about while you're making a resume. Like any type of experience that's relevant to the career that you're going for, try to just write it down. It could go a long way.
Dude, that's really
And
cool.
then- Go ahead, Byron. Go ahead.
I was gonna say. I'm sorry. We're like mixing up. You're good, man.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was just gonna say that I'm kind of feeling like a direct parallel between you and Chris and myself and Steve. Steve, I'm sure you remember this, right? Like, really helped me out with my resume a couple of years ago towards the end of graduation. So yeah, like it is super important to be able to write down everything you're doing. And I know that one thing that Steve preaches, and we've talked about this on a couple previous episodes of the podcast, is making sure that you document every responsibility that you've handled in a job or in a club organization or whatever it is that you're a part of. Because sometimes you kind of forget or you tend to downplay your accomplishments. So it's really awesome that you did that. I mean, because like I was kind of in the same boat where I worked on a couple projects with friends at school, but never anything kind of longer term. But I guess that kind of goes a longer way than just going through the core curriculum in your classes. And then
And Chris, you were good.
Yeah.
You were going to say something. What was that, Chris?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And like, if I can just make a remark, I think I believe I actually mentioned this to you, Jason, during the sort of initial conversations. It's the one thing that I've seen from people that are recent graduates or that are planning to do a transition from a different industry into the video game industry. Is perhaps that sense of like, well, I don't actually have experience on this, and I can say by like I was surprised, man, to see like the amount of projects that you had not only developed but basically be in charge of. It's like, well, this is your ticket right here, man. And I think for anybody that watches the podcast, it's like that's definitely something that you have to capitalize and not be shy about, because you have done the work. It's been your effort into it, and there's been results, whether it was like something successful or not. You still were able to get that experience, and the concept of transferable skills is like, you know, if you have the work dedication, the proper work ethic to get stuff accomplished, that's something that you definitely have to sort of bring up every moment that you can, because it's your potential that can get you that job. You know, I think, yeah, that's all that I wanted to say.
Right.
So
Good stuff, man.
for Jason,
Because you did.
For Jason, so Chris touched on like there were some different projects that you worked on, and even though those aren't quote unquote work experience, he's absolutely right in that's relevant. It's not professional experience, but it's a relevant experience and skills that you can put onto a resume. Can you tell us about some of those projects that you were working on in the past that you were able to put on your resume?
Yeah, so I think the main one that is probably gonna be most relevant to most companies is I made this game in Unity. It's called Space Mastermind. The only reason I didn't really want to like put it on there is because we never actually finished the game, but we did do some like really good work on it, and there was like work and dedication, and it shows like the passion that we put on in the game while we were making it, me and my friends from school. But that's like the big one that I try to, I guess, showcase like to the best of my ability, because that's the one that's like that would be super relevant to most companies, since most companies either use Unity or Unreal, bounce between the two. And essentially that game, the way I got about to like inspired to want to make something like that game was I was inspired by Resident Evil, Dead Space, something like I wanted to kind of do like something that was like horror, in a way, which is pretty ironic because I'm like very terrible with horror. I cannot handle horror, but I wanted to do something like that, and I really enjoy like outer space stuff. I'm a big like space guy. I like learning about outer space and stuff like that. I actually used to want to be an astronaut at some point, but obviously that dream is probably never going to happen. But yeah, that was kind of like my thought process. I wanted to just like have the world be in space, and then like just include like horror elements into them. And essentially that's kind of what ended up happening. I really enjoy the work I put into it. It was a lot of programming, a lot of level designing, which is what I mostly did. I was mostly like the level designer, and that's kind of like what I have like a pretty big passion on. I really like designing stuff. UI, menu, I made all that stuff. The level, as I mentioned, and I did also help around with the programming because I was also I am also a programmer, so I helped out in that. And I don't know, I just really like the turnout that the game made. Even though it wasn't finished, we kind of just had to prematurely finish it, put an end to it at some point because we didn't have much time left. But that was a big one. And then some other projects that I did make, this was in a different class. We worked with NES, the NES console, in a software called 8-Bit Workshop. I think it's actually more recent, a lot more newer, but it's not used that often. But for stuff like older games like Super NES, NES, it's it's something that you can use for that. So we used 8-Bit Workshop to make NES games, and we made like about 3 or 4 of them. But this was also around the time when COVID started happening. So when we had to transition from like doing like actual in school to online, it was a little bit tough. And we had to kind of like scrap one of the game ideas. So we ended up having to just move out to like the last project. The first project we did was just a basic like text game, just something like so we can dip our toes into 8-Bit Workshop and understand it. And I believe the second game was actually like a 2D shooter, something. I don't remember the game. It's like a 2D shooter type of game. Essentially, there's like targets out on the field, and then you just have to move between left or right and shoot the targets. And I think the third game is the one we actually ended up having to scrap. And the fourth game was like putting everything that we've learned and into one game, into like a platformer, side-scrolling platformer. But we never actually finished that one either. But we did do a decent. I think we did do a good job on it, anyways. I was still proud of the work we did, especially for 8-Bit Workshop was kind of really hard to like comprehend and understand and use, because a lot of the coding involved was like it was kind of gibberish in a way. Even though it was like something we've seen before, it was still like really weird to understand. And also the sprite work was super weird too, because it was just like you were confined between like a block, and you fill out the blocks to get like the sprite essentially. So it was kind of weird to understand, and I ended up having to like I helped out with like the sprite work too, and the programming, but a lot of that was like really unfamiliar for us, and just trying to comprehend it. It took a lot more than we thought. But those are just some of the projects that I made. The ones that I'm pretty proud of is the Unity one, the last one, the platformer that we made in the 8-Bit Workshop.
Gotcha. And then, like, it's obvious that you have a ton of experience developing games. And I'm sure we've got some listeners that are like, I've got 0 game development experience. How do I even get started, right? And for you, what was your journey into going from 0 development experience to what you have now?
So a lot of it I have to credit my professor, because he's the one that taught me pretty much everything about Unity and just like programming in general. Because my thought process when I first like took my intro to game development class, my thought process, I didn't really know like what to expect going in there. Like I didn't really know how you incorporated like the programming language into the actual game, like how you code it to make the game like run and work the way it's supposed to. But that like my video game development experience actually dates back to high school, because I took a class called video game design, but it didn't really involve any programming. It was still programming, like logic and stuff was involved, but you didn't really I didn't really type any code or line of code down. We actually used a software called Game Salad, and it was all like essentially it's like putting together pieces of the puzzles and making it work. Like there's a puzzle piece that says like have this character move, or something like that, and we ended up using that. But that was like where it first started for me. Like I learned video game development then, and then in college, a lot of it is credited to my professor. He taught us everything, like how to write, or he basically showed us like what code to write, and then like replicate it yourself, and these other games for these projects of ours. So a lot of it is credited for him, and a lot of it also it's tutorials. I used a lot of tutorials online videos, because I don't really think my coding skills are like up to speed with what I feel is like the standard. So a lot of it I had to just look up on my own as well at some point, and video tutorials are really helpful, but they also only go like a certain way, so you just get stumped again. But those are like the main things that really help out. Any like Google is your friend, but make sure to ask like a lot of questions as well. Like if you have any professors that are teaching video game development, it's important to just ask questions, and just clarify it. Make sure to like that everything is clarified for you to be as simple as possible, because it can be really complicated.
I'd like to follow up on
Yeah.
that a little bit. So you mentioned a couple different things that you've used, right? You mentioned Game Salad, 8-Bit Workshop, and Unity. And so for a lot of people going out there or that are starting out looking for programming languages, they've maybe heard of like JavaScript, Java, all those different frameworks. In your opinion, what was the best place to start, or what was that start for you once you got into your CS program in college?
I would say, I mean, I liked using Unity. That was my favorite. I tried using Unreal, but personally, I wasn't the biggest fan of it. Although I know a lot of companies do use Unreal Engine, so at some point I would probably have to go back to it. But I liked Unity a lot. I think it was really simple and just to the point with certain things. I know Unreal has their like blueprint system, and I was just a little bit complicated for me to understand. A lot of it was I had to kind of look it up, to just learn about it. I think a good starting point would be Unity though, and then once you actually learn Unity, I think you can go to like doing Unreal Engine. Um, yeah. And then, well, I forgot to mention. For it depend. I guess it also depends on the programming language. Well, for Unity, we used we primarily use like C or C sharp. So if you're using something like that, then yeah. But for Unreal Engine, they do have like C++ with their blueprint system thing. So it kind of depends on the language that you're using as well. I would say, but mostly I believe C and C sharp are like the things that most companies do use. I think.
So obviously Jason has an absolute passion for game development, and Chris, I wanted to go back to you. Like, I'm sure working at PlayStation, you get a ton of people that ask for your mentorship, ask for your leadership. Out of all of the people in the world, like, you ended up working with Jason. What are some of the things that stick out about Jason that you look for in someone that you're actually going to mentor?
Absolutely, man. So the one thing that I mentioned to you, Jason, like at the end of the day, man, it's like, you were willing to listen and basically take everything in. And for me, like, I can give as much guidance as people want, but it's only those that are willing to follow through and follow up that I personally try to like invest my time into. And what, like, Jason, you're definitely one of those people, man. I think it's having that determination of, like, as a person who may not have the experience, the technical skills, like, at the very least you have the passion to try to pursue these types of things, right? Um, because everything else can be learned, everything else can be gathered through experience, but it's passion that is usually really hard to come from like a natural place, right? As well as that determination, it's like it is not easy to go through 1, 2, 3, or 4 rounds of interviews and get rejected every time, and still be willing to say, I'm not giving up on this. That's something remarkable, especially for a young person that's just coming out of college. Which, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that come in, including myself, right? That come out of college thinking that because we have our certificate or diploma, is like we're guaranteed to have a job, and it's like it's a different reality out there. It can be a big part of the consideration to get a job, but I think everything is evolving a little bit more, right? So I think just people that have determination, the passion, and that are seriously committed to their own success, those are the people that is the easiest for me to sort of approach and work with. I mean, I believe Byron, you may have already experienced it with Steve. It's kind of the same thing, one of the cool dynamics that we get out of working with people like that is we feed off each other's energy, and it just makes the process on its own a little bit more enjoyable.
Yeah, and like one of the things I want to touch on is that you mentioned when working with Jason that he was very self-driven, self-motivated. Like you would give him instructions and he would listen to those, actually put them into action, and then come back to you and then ask for more, right? So for those listeners out there, when you look at job descriptions, don't you always see those little bullet points that say like self-motivated, communicates effectively, right? And Jason and what Jason, Chris, and Byron do absolutely, like when they come to a mentor, they are showing these things. They show how well they communicate. They show how well that they take instruction. They show how well they're able to take feedback and improve and be self-motivated. So this is like actual evidence. This is like proof that they have these skills, and it's not just a bullet point on a resume, because anybody can put that, right? But how are you actually showing it to the people, and especially understanding that you guys talked about being able to return the energy, right? So as a mentor, we want to talk and be able to help somebody out. So when we see that somebody's actually taking that information and doing something good with it, that makes us feel good, right? And it makes us want to invest even more, because it's that versus the other people who we give instructions to and then they do nothing with it. And that can be like, that's like the frustration on our end as mentors, is that like, okay, I feel like I'm talking to a brick wall, and part of it is they just may not be ready for it, but I want to invest more of my time on people that are returning that energy. You know what I mean? So excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. I know that's definitely one of the things that I look for in everybody that I work with. So I can see this as how my vision has been kind of panning out, because me and Byron, right, we have a relationship where I've been helping Byron, and then we started up this podcast, right? So we're able to help other people out. I've been mentoring Chris, ever since our days back at PlayStation, and then now Chris has been mentoring Jason, right? So this is kind of like the master plan for game developers, is like, how are you paying it forward and helping the other game developers? Because ultimately, there's a little bit of selfishness in me, because I know the more people I help with their careers, the more awesome games I'm going to be able to be able to play in the future, right? So thank you guys for the future work that you're all going to be doing. And I know that since Jason has had this experience, he's absolutely going to be able to do this with other people in the next few years as they come to him for guidance, because Jason is building up his professional experience as a video game tester. So thank you guys so much for that. One more thing that I wanted to touch on is, I know that Jason and Chris have been working for a few months. What are some of the things that you're working on in the future, and like how is this going to be panning out in the near future?
Is the question like at a professional level or like more personal level?
Either way, like obviously the relationship that you have, it kind of started off as profession, but I'm guessing that there's like friendship that's building into it now.
Oh,
it's not just like a professional mentor-mentee, but like how is this relationship between you two evolving?
Gotcha. Well, if I can start, man. Like as for me, is like I always just try to be a resource to anybody that may need some help, right? And especially like as you, Jason, start transitioning into this job, and basically you're gonna see how the years fly by in game development, man. And being able to solidify these relationships and being able to catch up with each other, the importance of basically maintaining like healthy relationships outside of work. Like that's something that I'd like to provide. Like basically, not only for you, like for Steve, which we have actually been doing, even though we don't work with each other anymore, and with even you, Byron, sometime soon. And I think that's super important, you know, because it is tough to work in game development. A lot of times there's plenty of challenges, overtime, deadlines, whatever, right? And you need to be able to rely on people that are either going through the same thing or have already gone through it. And, you know, it's kind of nice to have that as well. I think that's where I would personally like our relationship to, you know, just keep going throughout the years.
And then for you, Jason, like, what are the things, obviously just getting into the industry, first step is actually to get that first job, right? And then I'm sure there are going to be tons of questions that you're going to have, like what do you foresee that you will need moving forward just as you grow as a professional?
I think a lot of it's going to be like drive and determination. Like you have to be determined to go into the work, and especially for something like QA testing, which I don't know like a lot about, but I have heard certain things about it. Like it's a lot of like you have to have very like attention to detail and stuff like that. Like you have to be very patient at times because it's like a very delicate job to do. And I don't think people really like they either don't really know like the actual meaning of being a QA tester, or they just they had a different mindset, and once they actually get into it, it's like a completely different thing than what they thought, because some people just think it's actually just you're just testing games, but it's not the case. There's a lot more to it, of course, but like for me it's like I'm always gonna be able to go and rely on Chris for help, because he's just super easy to like talk with, very friendly, a very friendly guy, and I just really like I just my mindset was like I can always go to Chris because it's just like he always helps me out, even if like it's not something that I think I guess I should hear. Like he still gives me advice, and it's really helpful, just like how easy it is to talk with him and how like fun it is, and just nice. He's a really nice person, and honestly like I 100% recommend if you ever need someone to go to Chris. Super helpful guy. But I'm really hoping that we can just keep this relationship like between us going for years to come, and I hope maybe one day we'll be able to like work together as well, because I would certainly love for that to happen.
That'll be sick, man. Of course.
Yeah, that's super awesome, man. Like, I have a couple mentors as well, like Steve. We actually spoke earlier this week. I had some concerns, or not really concerns, but just wanted to, talk it out with him and kind of get the best approach and moving forward with work and with life and stuff like that. Just having someone that you can go back to instead of bottling up those feelings, I feel is super important. So I'm really glad that you guys have that relationship. And for those of you guys listening, yeah, make sure seeking mentors that even if they can't directly get you work, but just someone to bounce ideas off of, someone that's just there to listen is just super important to have.
Right. And even like just to add this, even for like something that wasn't the work experience, like he kind of helped me out, like was just like generally like moving out, like if I wanted to move out, right? Like he gave me some tips about
Cool.
that. Like it's not actually just like, hey, you're moving out, you're moving to a different state or different city or something. There's a lot more to it, of course. Like you have to really like do a lot of background check and information on that. And he kind of like brought me back down from like cloud 9, like, oh hey, I actually have to like look for apartments, or I have to see how much apartments cost or stuff like that, or like all those expenses and all that stuff. And he kind of like brought me back down. I'm like, all right, you know what? I never actually thought about it that way. I gotta actually like be realistic here. Like I don't really have a lot of the funds to do that. And that like it goes back to that too. Like he helped me out with that as well. Like it's not just the work, like the video game like work experience that or advice that he gave me too. So it's just really helpful in that sense.
Just a quick follow up on that. So just to provide a little bit of insight, is like I think the conversation, because we actually talked to each other on the phone, and the first thing that I asked is like, okay, so what's the plan, right? If you were to be accepted at Naughty Dog, Santa Monica Studio or anything, and it's like, there's all these things that actually going to place if you were to get a position, right? For anybody that's listening, it's super cool that you want to get into video games. It's just like, from personal experience too, it's like when do you do your homework and you see how realistic it is as far as your expenses as well. It's something that cannot be neglected, right? You can set yourself to basically work towards that. And I'm glad that you took that advice, Jason.
So one of the things that I love about this is that you guys have been talking for months already just about, working in video games and playing forward. If 4 years down the line, if Chris ends up working at an amazing studio and is looking for a high quality tester, right? Or if he knows another company that's looking for a high quality tester, he's absolutely confident in making a recommendation of Jason because they have this work experience, right? There's actual substance to them being able to work together, right? As opposed to some of the other job searchers out there that will reach out to a professional and say, hey, I saw this job, can you give me a recommendation, right? Mm-hmm. And the problem with that is if we were to make a recommendation on someone, what is that recommendation based on, right? If they ask me to recommend someone, is it based on one Zoom conversation that I had with them, or is it based on months of mentoring and working side by side at volunteer organizations or doing podcasts with, right, over the course of several months or years? That has a lot more credibility than somebody who just reached out to me once on LinkedIn. So this is the importance of building relationships with people, because part of it is you never know how it's going to play out in the future. Because every time you're interacting with somebody, whether you know it or not, that's already you interviewing with them, right? So this is exactly what companies are trying to find out about people in that short interview process. Do they know the person? Do they like the person's personality? And can they trust them to get the job done, right? So that's one of those things where be very mindful if you're asking for mentorship or if you're asking for a recommendation, what are the things you're contributing and how are you giving back? And then how can it possibly play out in the future? Because I had no idea that with my first conversation with Byron that several years later we'd be doing a podcast. I never had any idea that my first conversation with Chris that would end up in us doing this podcast, and then Chris would be mentoring somebody else, right? So that's why there's just incentive to be a good person in general, have positive interactions with people, and spread more good, because that's something that the gaming industry and the gaming community needs in general. We need more positivity. So thank you guys for being champions of positivity in video gaming, and I absolutely love seeing this type of stuff. So a little bit of a change in gears here. I want to talk about something like, what are the games that you guys played that influenced you to want to get into gaming? And let's start off with Jason. What's some games that you played that blew your mind and said, damn it, I want to get into this career?
So I would say, because one of my favorite games of all time is Jak and Daxter 2 from Naughty Dog. And that was my main drive to want to work with Naughty Dog. I love those games, so I want to be able to work there. Who wouldn't want to work with the studio that made their favorite game, right? And I just really enjoy those games. Unfortunately, they're probably never gonna make another one, but that's besides the point. Those are some like Jack 2, Jack 3. This is the whole Jack and Daxter series I really like. I would have to say like Persona 5 as well, and any RPG honestly, because I'm a big RPG guy, so I would love to make RPGs in the future.
Same.
But those are like some of the ones that really inspired me to want to get into video game development, because I love playing those games, so why not make my own, right? Yeah. Near Automata, or not Automata, Near Replicant, Final Fantasy 7, a lot of JRPGs. That's like my bread and butter basically. I love
Nice.
RPGs.
Got it. How about you, Chris?
Oh man. So dude, like I along with you guys, I'm one of the people that as a kid just grew up with like video games, you know, basically. And when I got my first PlayStation 1, I was in 3rd grade. I'm that old. And I remember like one of the first video games that I legitimately played. Didn't own any console before that, no Nintendo, Atari, or anything. It was actually Metal Gear Solid 1. And it kind of blew my mind just to be able to basically play a movie as a game. And I mean, for a young man like that, it's like, what is this, right? Of course, going into Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 2, and how groundbreaking it seemed back in the day, as far as like the graphics. I used to live in Mexico, so of course that was like a faraway dream. And when I came, of course, into the United States, lived here, just so happened to live in San Diego. It was by pure luck. I mean, I'm telling you, it's like I looked into the website for a PlayStation, went to the careers page, and realized that there was a location in San Diego for QA testing. So basically, that's kind of how it went, you know, like without expecting anything. I just went ahead and applied, and it was through my transferable skills of playing games since I was a kid, right, that I was able to get that job, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the main games for sure.
That's awesome. I'm kind of curious too. Are there any kind of current games that you guys are playing now? Like when you have time to play games?
Oh yeah, I have a couple. Well, because I still have time right now. Especially, well, I actually had another job, so I haven't been able to play that much. But when I do play, I actually recently I've been wanting to play games from the past that I've never played before, because there's so many series that I've just missed out on. So I want to be able to experience that for like the first time. And I was actually playing Resident Evil 5 with one of my friends,
Cool.
one of my longtime friends from
Cool.
from high school. And I'm trying to play through the whole Resident Evil series now because I've never played it. And I'm a big, like I mentioned, I'm a big like, what's it called? I'm afraid of like horror games. I get like really tensed up and just like I get like chills essentially. But like Resident Evil isn't too bad. I think the worst one is probably 7. But I never actually played it. But that's like some of the games that I'm playing now. I played Mirror's Edge for the first time as well. That was a pretty fun game, but it was a lot more different than I expected. And I'm trying to play through. The games that I do want to play through is BioShock. I've only played the first one, but I want to play the other ones at some point. I want to play through Fallout as well. Yakuza.
Heard good things about that one.
Yeah. And then The Witcher as well. And I want to actually play Skyrim this time because I played like 5 hours of Skyrim and I've never went back to it. I don't know what happened there, but I want to actually play through it at some point. And I'm also currently playing through Valkyrie Chronicles 4.
Oh, cool! Quite the backlog.
Yeah, I have a lot. I have a lot of games on Steam that I've just been making purchases because they go on sale, and I'm like, oh, I'll play them eventually, but I'll have them here just in the meantime. But at some point, I'm just like, all right, I gotta stop. I gotta just stop buying games and just play the ones I have right now, and then I can buy them at some point in the future.
Yeah.
'Cause, that's one way to go bankrupt.
Yeah, same. I picked up Deathloop. I put about 4 or 5 hours into it, and I have not touched it since.
I do want to play Deathloop as well.
Yeah.
Well, for me, like I have to be absolutely honest. It as a QA tester, sometimes it gets really complicated to play just games for fun because of time. Especially if you're doing a lot of overtime. You're using your eyes all day, right? So I haven't had a chance to really go back and play stuff, but my backlog is also pretty crazy. Like the last game that I played was like Life Strange 1 and 2, and I am also trying to retake some of the Call of Duty series, and I don't know, like I'm also into like the weird type of games that they're like $1.99 on the PlayStation Store. Just like I'm a little bit more interested in like what goes into those games, like a little bit more on the design type of thing. That way I just pay attention to the way that things are being made, and that actually makes it fun for me.
Cool.
Oh my goodness, like you just brought me back with some of those comments to my days as a tester, like working overtime and not being able to play games for fun afterwards. Like I remember there were times as a tester working overtime where I would play a game so much that I would still see it when I closed my eyes. And I would go to sleep, like I would close my eyes and be immediately dreaming about the game that I was playing. Or things like where you're playing a game and you just have to constantly listen to the same audio over and over and over again, and then that's just stuck in your brain as you're playing. So for all of you people that want to get into game testing, Jason mentioned also that it's not always just fun in games where you sit in the seat and it's having fun. Like there's some times where you got to do some repetitive stuff, and that's going to be one of the challenges that you're going to have, is just like how do you mentally attack this problem where yes, you have a game in front of you, but you're not necessarily playing it for fun, right? You're doing everything you can to break the game so that the consumer at the end of the picture is not going to have to go through those problems. So just one of those things to keep in mind for all of you prospective testers out there. So I'm curious, going back into being a tester as an entry-level position, I'm curious, Jason, for you, how do you want your career to play out in the future? Like, do you think you'll want to stay in testing the whole time, or would you want to maybe transition to a different discipline? What's in your mind at this moment?
Yeah, so for me, I wanted to just use, because I knew video or like QA testing is kind of like entry level. I wanted to use that as a bridge to be able to like get into the industry, but it's not. My goal is not really to like always do game QA testing. I want to be able to like actually be in the development process of the games, like programming, designing. So I would like to at some point, if I like, I guess like learn from experience, like how the programmers do their work, or how like designers do their work and stuff like that. I want to be able to use that at some point to be able to make my own games, like in the future, like maybe make my own company at some point and develop my own games. I think that'd be pretty cool. But for now, yeah, I wanted to just use like QA testing for that, just to help me learn more about the video game development process and stuff like that.
That's cool. And I know you mentioned level design specifically earlier in this conversation. Like, what is it about that really like captures your attention? What makes it so interesting for you to work on that part in particular?
Yeah, so I really like art. I like looking at art. Honestly, I use most of my social media just to look at artists' work and stuff like that, what they make and all that stuff. And I just really like am captivated by it. I really like watching it, just the process behind it. I'm not an artist myself. I'm not the best designer either. Before I actually did like computer science, I was gonna do graphic design, but
interesting.
I never. I guess like I decided to switch my career because I never really worked with like art in the past at all. Like that wasn't really something I put focus to. But I always liked admiring art. It's just something that I enjoy. But I switched because just I was really good at math, so people told me like you should do computer science. And I'm like, all right, okay, cool. But for like level designing specifically, I don't know. I use like that admiration for like art and stuff to just like design my own things. I actually did do. I took a class in animations back in high school, and we designed like our own things in Maya, and in Flash as well. And I really enjoyed like that process, even though it's very complex and like it's a lot of like tedious work. I just really enjoyed like being able to design character models and stuff like that, and I thought that was cool. And ever since then, I can't really explain what it is that I like. I just like being able. I guess it's like being able to be in control of the background of what's actually going on, like in the level itself. Like you have the whole full control of all of that stuff, and I think it's really cool to just being able to do the work with that. Menu designing as well. I don't know. I really like UI design and stuff like that. Just making your own or using a font and just like programming that stuff specifically as well, because it does involve programming also. But yeah, it's just something about level designing that like it like stood out to me more than actually the programming side while I was doing my games.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And you mentioned sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah. So you mentioned like you used Game Salad in high school and you took an animation class before you got to college. So it sounds like you came in with kind of a pretty well-rounded kind of knowledge of the industry, or at least some of the other disciplines. So would you say that was pretty helpful in kind of determining what path you wanted to be on? Would it be helpful for anyone to take those classes just to kind of have an understanding of those other disciplines, even if they don't want to do it at like a professional level? Like, what's your opinion on that?
Oh, absolutely. I think it really helped out a lot, because in high school I was still at a point where like I don't really know what I want to do. I hadn't really figured it out yet. I like gaming, so I mean it'd be cool to like do something video game development, but it never really like stood out to me like, oh, this is exactly what I want to do. But for when I took that class, I decided to take it because I like gaming, so why not just take a class to like learn about how games are designed, right? So I think that's super helpful. It impacted my decision, like is video game development what I would like to do in the future, and it helped out. It helped out a lot to just learn, like, even if I'd never use that Game Salad ever again, it still helped out just to learn like the program and understand like the process behind it, because it's still pretty similar in the grand scheme of things. It's just like the approach is different when you're using different programs, of course. But I would definitely recommend, if you have any like game design classes or animation classes or stuff like that, definitely take them. If you really want to like interested in like video game development, it comes a long way. It's super helpful. So definitely recommend that.
Cool. And then I know I interrupted you earlier, Chris. You were about to say something.
Yeah, sorry, man. No, what I was gonna say is that in video game development, once you're like in it, right? There's like a lot of intersecting parts between the different disciplines. That's why one of the things that you're gonna hear people say is like, well, I wear different hats, right? And it's definitely cool to basically have different understandings from all these disciplines and how they complement each other, because when it comes down to it, one definitely needs the other. And like from the QA perspective at least, is like I may not know all of that, but I see the interaction that, based on the bugs that I may write, it's a lot of communication that goes between, well, these certain disciplines. So,
Right.
yeah, for a person who would like to make their own games, I think it's like, dude, that's probably the perfect path. That way, if you get a person like me that that tells you a very complex bug, it's not like, well, I know how to fix this part, but man, like I have no clue what goes into this next thing. And that's what happens a lot with QA. You know, we don't discriminate against bugs. It's just like, if it happens, it happens. It just it just needs to be fixed, right?
Yeah, and I think like that's really important too. Like just I guess that's what like and also another mentality that I had when I was like designing and stuff like that. Like it's nice to just know like the process behind it. Like in the future, even if I don't like work with it at some point, like it's still nice to know the process so you can like be able to communicate with like your coworkers and stuff like that. People that just like do that actually do the designing and I think that's really important and helpful as well. Like just having like basic knowledge of other disciplines is probably important as well.
And one of the things that I'm particularly excited for your career is that as you get into testing, now that you're going to have your first job, you're absolutely right that you're going to be able to interact with people across the entire gaming industry, right? And this is one of those things where you don't have to know how your career progresses as you move forward, but this is going to give you the opportunity to sample a lot of those different things, right? So as you begin to interact with sound designers or artists or programmers or maybe even other aspects of gaming, such as like the business aspect, producers, right, directors, then you're going to see a little bit into each of their lives, and that can give you some clues on how you want your career to progress, right? Same thing for me. I started off as a tester, and then I went into production, and then now I'm a recruiter, right? So part of this is understanding that your career will evolve. And that's why I love that also you have mentors like Chris that will help guide you throughout this process, because this is, in my vision, it's never a one and done conversation. It's always an ongoing, evolving kind of relationship. So that's one of the reasons why I'm excited for you and your future, because you've got a great start already. You've got a great mentor, and there's just lots of amazing possibilities and opportunities that we don't even know yet. And I'm excited so that in future podcasts we can revisit and see how your career has evolved. So thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to have this chat with us.
I just wanted to add something.
Oh, go ahead.
Like to be honest, or this is like with the conversation from like that we were just having, like design, like or UI designing, stuff like that. I just like I guess like another reason why like I like exploring other things is I just admire, I like, for me, I admire the smaller things in games a lot of the times, things that people probably don't really comment on as much, compared to like other things, like maybe people comment more like on combat, like does it work well, does it interact well and stuff like that, so like programming and stuff like that. But for me, it's like I just really enjoy like the smaller things in games, like looking at the scenery. I admire that a lot. The sound, I love.
Hey.
I love video game music so much. I really appreciate like the work that comes from it, because it's hard, right, to be able to like compose music, and I want to learn that process. Even if I'm never gonna use it, it's still nice to just learn about it and just see how the process goes. Like pick the composer's brains and like how do they go about like thinking of like the sounds that they do, the effects, the sound effects and all that stuff. Like I want to learn that process too. I just want to learn like pretty much everything. Like doesn't matter like if I'll use it or not, but it's still helpful to just have and know.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that, man. I actually am a composer myself. It's not the main thing I do anymore, but if you ever want to chat about that, dude, I'm more than willing to, hop on a call or show you my process, because I'm actually, for fun, I'm working on a game with one of my friends, and I am sending over some music tracks to him, and I've chopped it up into like the intro, the loop. So yeah, I can totally give you some insight to like what I do for that.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I actually do, like right here. I have a.
Oh, dude, I already saw it.
I have not touched it at all, but I love piano music, especially if it's in games. Like it's just, I don't know, it really like touches my heart essentially.
Mm-hmm.
But I just really like, I've always wanted to learn that, and just like, but it's super hard, right? It's a super hard instrument to learn. But I'm getting off topic. It's just. I just wanted to add that in there. Like I just love learning about like other things that come while you're doing video game development, and not just the programming side and or the testing side and stuff like that.
Just real quick, I think it's called serendipity. What just happened?
Yeah.
And now that you're going to be working in a professional environment, now is an opportunity for you to be able to meet face to face the people that are actually doing these things, right? So that's the same process is going to be happen is going to go on now that you're going to be a professional at this company. It's going to be the same process, just like you reached out to Chris and built this relationship. Now you're going to have the opportunity to do that with everybody at this company, because now you're more accessible to them, and vice versa, right? You're going to be working side by side with these people for probably years, and then that's going to give you the opportunity to build relationships with them and pick their brains. And like, that's one of those things where when they know you, like you, and trust you, they'll be able to give you some more information, right? You're not some random dude coming out from LinkedIn sending them a blind message, but you're actually working side by side with them, right? So this is a tremendous opportunity for you to take moving forward. And a great lesson for any of the listeners out there is like, once you get your foot in the door at somewhere, at an organization, whether it's you're working with them or maybe even volunteering in the same organization, that's a great way to kind of break the ice and say, hey, we've got this thing in common, and then use that as a kind of the springboard to open up the relationship. So awesome stuff.
Can I just give like one more piece of advice? This is just something that I didn't ever do while I was in university, but I want like other people to know that they probably should. I think it's really important, and it's probably one of the things that I took out of like my 4 or 5 years of being there. Like, I regret not doing. If you have the opportunity to do so, like, make sure to take internships. They definitely would go a long way. And that's one thing that I regret not doing, because I was just like, I didn't want to do any of that. Like, I was like, I just want to finish school. Like, I want to, move on with life and like start a career or something. But they do go a long way, and they're super helpful. So make sure to like take advantage of that. Definitely while you're still in university. I think it's really important and helpful.
Gotcha. And speaking of university, Chris, I want to go to you. Like, I know you graduated. For you, what are some of the things that you would like to advise others to do that you didn't learn in school?
Right. So I would definitely like to say it's like just take a moment to do a little bit of self-reflection, right? To understand kind of where you're at and realize that things have dramatically changed in the past couple of years as far as like the job market goes. It's like I can tell you almost with certainty, graduated in 2014, that most of my classmates and basically people that were my friends, all of us were in the same situation, that we graduated, we applied to all these jobs with the expectation that we were going to be given a chance, right? And the times have changed, so it is not as easy anymore. I believe that internships can definitely give you a lot of insight and experience, real world hours, which is what hiring managers are looking for. But definitely, do not take stuff for granted. Maybe that's just the first thing. The sooner you start making relationships, reaching out to people, there's not, as far as I know, like a limit of age that you can create a LinkedIn account, and that, I believe, is the new way of obtaining a lot of jobs, right? By professionally networking, even if it's with people that live hundreds of miles away from you. So we definitely live in different times. It's like, don't expect, like, Steve, like how frank I am and straightforward, right? Like, so I'll just say it, like, don't expect for people to just give you stuff, right? You have to work for it. You have to build the relationships. You have to put yourself out there. And I know this affects a lot of people that may be introverted, but it's like, you just know that you are doing it for yourself, that you're not trying to prove anything to anybody, and that is going to be something positive for you. Try to look for people that are going to support you along the way, that sort of understand you, that motivate you to get to where you're at, because it's a lot harder to do it all by yourself. And I mean, I think this is kind of like a good representation of that, right? Like, the four of us somehow have that going on right now, and good. That's what matters.
You're absolutely right. And one of those things that you touched on, being an introvert, right? I, severe introvert, have fear of talking to more than two people at a time, right? But I also understood that it's important to build my social skills. Now, interactions like this are totally exhausting for me, but at the same time, I understand that it's something that I have to do if I want my career to progress. So before, I would be completely just turned off by any social interaction situation. If any interaction, I'd want to be in a corner, kind of doing my own thing on my phone, doing whatever, doing anything but talking to people. But because I know the importance of networking and getting to know people, that's what kind of gives me the courage to move out and move forward, and understanding that I have the ability to make a positive impact on other people's lives. That what's helped motivates me to get out of my comfort zone and to reach out to other people and just build a connection, because somehow, some way, I can add positivity into the world just by making a connection. So who am I to stop myself from making those impacts by just sitting in a corner and doing my own thing? So shout out to all of the introverts out there. You can do it. If I can do it, you guys can do it. Just get out there, be uncomfortable, and then you keep going from there. So awesome stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, man.
And then Mr. Byron, I know we're getting close to the end here, so I'll let you take it from here.
Oh, yep. I was just about to. Yep. So yeah, appreciate you guys coming on, taking the time to do this. This was a great conversation. First things first, we'd love to have you guys back on in the future, maybe 6 months down the line, a year from now, just to kind of see where you're going, especially Jason, once you start your position. And when do you officially start, by the way?
Tomorrow, actually.
Oh, cool.
Dude, congrats, man.
It's so crazy. I mean, 3 weeks ago, sorry, I don't want to like take up too much time, but it's already been like 3 weeks since I actually got the job offer. But since I wanted to put like a 2 weeks notice at work, since I was working at Best Buy in the meantime, it's finally time. Like, it's finally here. Like, I can't believe how fast October has passed already. It's crazy.
Dude, yeah, that's awesome. So we'll definitely need to follow up. I want to hear kind of like your experience and all the stuff you've learned. I'm sure it's going to be like another great conversation like this one. And yeah, so you guys have left some great kind of parting advice already. You've also mentioned a couple pieces of software. I'll list those in the description. And the last thing I'd like to know for our audience is kind of where can people find you? Social links, LinkedIn, and specifically for you, Jason, I forgot to ask this earlier, but you named off quite a few projects that I'm personally interested in checking out. Can I find those anywhere online? Is there any gameplay for it? Is there like itch.io and stuff like that? So yeah, go ahead and name off any like social links that you'd like to the audience to know about.
Yeah, so I actually have a portfolio where I have like demos of the game, and then like it just like an introduction of myself and stuff like that. But I would probably need to link that to you because I don't remember it by memory. It's a really like weird link. It's just like pre-made.
Mm-hmm.
So I would need to link that. But I also LinkedIn, of course. If you can just find me for like I think you can just find me by like putting my name Jason Villareal or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Oops. But yeah, I don't usually give out my Twitter or anything like that because for personal reasons I don't really like to give out like Facebook, Twitter, stuff like that. But usually you can definitely find me on LinkedIn. I always get notifications on there, or you can shoot me a DM through my Discord or anything like that as well. But yeah, for the portfolio, I can just link that to you. You can put that in the description if people want to check out the works I've done.
Okay, cool. And what about you, Chris?
Cool. So I actually, I mean, you can believe me or not, but I don't have any social media. I divorced it. But I do have a LinkedIn, so anybody that just wants to sort of connect or, talk about anything really, I guess I'll just give you guys the link for it. Yeah, like super open for any type of conversation, and especially if it is like something professional, like about video games, like I'm definitely down for that. So
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast, and yeah, that concludes this episode of the EmpowerUp podcast. See you guys next time.
see you guys.
Bye. Thank you.